Welcome to Adulting 101, presented by the Lumberjack Wellness Network. I hope this session is informative and you're able to find at least a handful of takeaways. Who is the Lumberjack Wellness Network? We're basically a group of faculty members and staff who wish to empower our campus community to have meaningful and helpful conversations surrounding our students in need. We want to make sure that our students are connected to the proper resources and services for any well-being need they may have. What type of information should you expect to learn from this session? You'll learn how to communicate effectively, knowledge of basic life skills such as applying for a job, owning a car, and scheduling a doctor's appointment. When we think about communicating effectively, you want to think about it in two parts: your verbal and nonverbal communication. These tips are going to be relevant to any individual you're communicating with. It's important to have an open mind and positive attitude. When you approach a conversation this way, it allows you to listen actively and be fully present with the conversation. Depending on the topic, your tone and pitch can be affected in a drastic way. Although you may be saying one thing, your tone and pitch can be interpreted in a different way by the person you're speaking to. I've often said it's how you say what you say. When you're speaking, make sure you're doing so in a clear and concise way. If you find yourself getting flustered, take a break and start over. As much as your tone and pitch can tell a listener what you're saying, your body language can do so too. Are you giving someone the side eye, rolling your eyes, looking away because you're either distracted or uncomfortable? Are you crossing your arms? Or maybe you're not fully engaged in the conversation because you're on your phone. For those who have natural RBF, this can be definitely a challenge because your facial expressions can oftentimes be misinterpreted. As uncomfortable as it can be, it is important to make eye contact with the person you're speaking with. This can assist you in listening actively, but also allow you to read the room in a way to know how the other person is feeling. Lastly, as you're speaking with someone, be open to feedback and the discussion that is taking place. If you're going into the conversation without an open mind, or square in your posture, looking for an argument and finger pointing, your discussion will no longer be effective. Moving on to email communication. No matter if you're communicating with an instructor, a supervisor, your advisor, an officer of a student, or you're part of, these are all great tips to follow. I cannot emphasize this enough. Please use a subject line. When an individual receives a couple dozen emails a day, being able to narrow down what the subject of the email is before opening it can be useful. I know a lot of you may have your personal email addresses from high school, but I encourage you to make sure to use a professional email address instead of having one such as kittycat2007 or partyanimal2006. A professional email address would be stephen.austin@gmail.com. It's common to use your first and your last name and a number as well. Before you send your email, make sure to verify the spelling of the recipient's name. Sometimes we can assume a name is spelled a certain way, or we can assume their name is something completely different. Tyler versus Taylor, Haley versus Hallie. In addition, you want to use a professional greeting such as "Hello, Instructor Austin." "Hi, Mr. Austin." "Hi, Dr. Stevens." For many of us, it's common behavior to use exclamation points when you're trying to show how you're feeling, but be wary of excessive exclamation points. Instead of using one or two exclamation points following each sentence, maybe cut it down to once the entire email or none at all. Excessive exclamation points might make the reader feel as though you're shouting at them. Speaking of shouting, it's proper etiquette to avoid using all capital letters when you're communicating with someone. That oftentimes can be interpreted as you are shouting at that individual and not in a good way. Next, we want to make sure to keep our emails concise. Make sure that the reader knows what information you are trying to relay to them. If you have a specific question you're asking, and move on. If you add too many details and too much fluff, oftentimes your message can get lost by the reader. As you're getting used to sending professional emails, you should always proofread your email or have someone else do it for you. Lastly, always include a signature line. You could assume that the person who is reading will get that information from your email address, and very well they could. But it's always a good rule of thumb to include who wrote the email. If you're emailing your advisor or your instructor, it's recommended to not only include your student ID number, but also include the class that you're emailing about and its section number. This has become because many professors and instructors can teach 2 or 3 of the same classes. Each section number may have 25, 75, or 100 students in it. And that really can be difficult to narrow it down. Which class, which course the student is from. We've learned about how to communicate effectively and clearly, as well as how to write emails. But what happens when you're communicating with someone and it turns into a conflict? I want you to think about creating a resolution. Sometimes you have to respect that you can agree to disagree and move on to the next topic. You want to make sure to express your real concerns. Sometimes, when we're feeling passionate about a specific topic, our emotions can start playing a factor into the conversation, and your point of view gets lost in the conversation. So make sure that you're not falling into this pit. Sometimes, when we get wrapped up in a conflict, you may need to talk about something else. Change the subject fully until both parties have cooled down. When a conversation turns to conflict, try to make sure that you are viewing the conversation from the other individual's point of view as well. Sometimes we can get so wrapped up in our concerns and what emotions we have with a specific topic that we're not willing to see how the other person has their own views and how their concerns are also just as important. By listening carefully to the entire conversation, it can help work through some of these issues. Sometimes we can hear a few words and instantly narrow our focus on that wording, that we tune out and ignore everything else that individual spoke about. So we want to make sure that we are fully engaged in listening to the entire conversation. When you're having a conflict and you're trying to determine what solution to choose, you want to determine what are the consequences. Just like there are really 3 sides to a story, your view, the other's view, and what truly happened, there's not always one solution. There could be multiple solutions, how you from the conversation. Sometimes you do have to agree to disagree, or you may come to an agreement from the group project that you cannot work together ever again. But you know what? That's okay. You can take that as a learning experience. To turn on to the next subject, we're going to cover budgeting. For a lot of students coming into school, this is the first opportunity and need to think of a budget. The great thing is there's no one way to keep a budget. You can do so the old school way of pen and paper, writing down what your expenses are, but maybe you'd rather use an Excel sheet or one of the many different apps that you can utilize that are free. An envelope system can be incredibly useful when you want to use it for your wants, but not your needs. Maybe each week you put $20 aside for Starbucks. Once you're out of that money that week, you're out. You then must wait for the following week to purchase Starbucks again. What we encourage everyone to do is to always think about what are the fixed, reoccurring expenses you're going to have no matter what every single week. Things such as your rent, water, electricity, phone bill, and car insurance. Do not forget about your subscriptions such as Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and more. These reoccurring expenses can add up quickly. I encourage you to think about if there are some subscriptions that you really don't need anymore. Maybe you haven't found anything on Hulu that you wanted to watch in months. You're not utilizing it, but yet you're paying for it. Maybe that's an expense you want to get rid of, and then you can put that money towards something that you really do, in fact, want. After you've determined your fixed expenses, you can determine where you can spend your remaining funds. Maybe you want to go out to eat with some friends. Maybe it's buying new clothes or going dancing at Benita. The thing about being an adult, you must make that determination. Wrapping up budget. I really want you to take away that person who is sitting next to you in history class or theater class in poli sci. They may keep track of a budget in a completely different way than you are. That is okay. Find what works for you. So we're now moving away from budgeting and we're covering interviewing because that is definitely a big part of being an adult, being in college, and graduating. As you're preparing for your interview, I want you to think about a few different things. The first thing is, I want you to think about yourself. Know your own elevator pitch. What is your education? What is your experience? Not only your experience in the classroom, but what experience have you received outside of the classroom? If you have a part time job and you have a difficult time properly communicating your experience, I recommend talking to your supervisor and they can give you some great points. More times than not, I found students are underselling themselves with their experience from everything that they receive from their part time job. You'll probably have a lot more experience than you give yourself credit for. Yes, it's important to know what education and experience you have, but employers also want to know a little bit about who the person is that is interviewing for the job. There's a person in there that is more than the job they're applying for. So think about what type of things do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do on the weekend? Because we want to hear about all of that information. As you're leading up and getting prepared for your particular interview, you want to do a little bit of research about the organization that you're applying for. Who are they? Where are they all about? Where are they located? When did they get started up? Maybe they've been around for 20 or 30 years. Or they're a new little mom and pop business that just popped up in town. How did this organization get started? Always make sure that you do your research about the companies that you're applying for. As you're applying for these jobs, drafting your resume and cover letter, you want to make sure that you are proofreading your writing. A great resource at SFA is the Center for Career and Professional Development, located on the third floor of the Baker Patillo Student Center. They have peers just like you who can proofread your cover letter and resume and make sure that it can stand out when you're applying for a specific position. It's important to keep in mind how cover letters differ from resumes. Cover letters are written specifically for the job you're applying for. You may have a resume for 5 different jobs that all look identical, but your cover letters should never look the same. They may have similarities, but you want to go and frame your cover letter for the job that you're applying for. Cover letters do not list your entire skills, education, and experience history. It needs to touch on the job requirements and the necessary skills that are specific to the job that you're applying for. Many job applications will ask for references. Before you list a reference, you need to not only ask the individual for their permission, but make sure they'll provide a positive reference for you. I've had individuals ask if they could list me as a reference. We then had to have a very awkward conversation on they could list me as a reference. However, I may not be giving them a positive reference. As you prepare for the day of the interview, think about what to wear and what to bring. You want to make sure that you're dressing professionally. For most jobs, slacks, blouses, polos, a button down shirt, a collared shirt, or a blazer are acceptable. If you're unsure what the dressing etiquette is for a particular job you're applying for, ask someone who is in that industry or even Google that information. Your professors who are in the industry you are applying for are great resources and could provide you with great insight on what to wear. When you think about dressing professionally, if you do not have anything appropriate to wear, instead of buying items, visit the Center for Career and Professional Development and go check out their career closet. You can go and borrow interviewing or special occasion clothing. A plus, it's free. To move on to what to bring. It's recommended to bring your resume and your cover letter. It could be useful to reference back to your documents when you need a reminder of points to cover during the interview. Other things that you want to make sure to bring are a list of questions to ask the employer. Please write them down instead of assuming you'll remember the question. A benefit of writing the questions down are you look like you are fully prepared when you can turn to that sheet of paper and have the questions written down. It shows that employer this person definitely prepared for this interview. Lastly, bring a water bottle, something to write on and write in. If you have a question that suddenly comes to your mind, you can go and jot that down on your portfolio to revisit at another time. So you have prepared for your interview and you are now there on the interview day. What do you need to make sure to do? One, be original, enthusiastic, and memorable, but in a positive way. And I say that in a positive way because a number of years ago, the department I worked for, the student employees led the job fair, not the professional staff. Our department gave our student employees the ability to interview potential students that they could work with one day. One of our student employees came to me to let me know that one of the interviewees asked them out on a date in the middle of the interview. To make matters worse, they were not interviewing this individual. It was another student employee. This individual interrupted their interview to ask them on a date. So again, that was definitely memorable, but not in a positive way. During your interview, be clear and concise. Oftentimes, you're going to be nervous. That's a natural emotion. What you may need to do is slow down your wording and take a deep breath. If you're a fidgeter, I recommend have something that you can fidget with that is not obvious, nor makes any noise. I use a paperclip or pin cap to expel my nervous energy. Make sure to have your questions fully answered when asked. Sometimes questions can come in a two-part question. If you have that portfolio ready, you can jot down keywords to make sure that you don't forget about the full question. Be an active listener and read the room. A lot of times you can know how you're doing due to facial expressions or body language of those interviewing you. Similar to fidgeting, be mindful of your body language and nervous habits. Maybe you have a verbal nervous habit such as saying or that's a good question after each and every question. What is a nervous habit that you have? What is that tick that you have? If you're unaware, I recommend to ask someone, do they know when you're nervous and how do they know that? Lastly, when you're talking during the interview, always avoid asking any type of questions about ethnicity, age, marital status, religion, or children. You just wrapped up your interview and it's now the next day and you are on cloud nine. What do you want to make sure to do? Send a thank you to the individual who interviewed you. It can be in form of an email or a letter. Thank them for their time. Take the opportunity to say a few more sentences of why you think you'd be a good fit for the position and how you're looking forward to hearing back from them. We've talked about interviews, and we're now going to move on to prevention and care of illnesses and injuries, because just like the first sections, this is also relevant for adulting. Even though you may be away from home, you want to make sure that you are still scheduling and attending your routine preventative care exams. Things such as seeing your primary care doctor, your dentist, and vision appointments. You want to make sure that you stick with them. If it makes more sense for you to move these doctors to Nacogdoches, I recommend to do so. Part of being an adult also includes making sure to treat minor illnesses and injuries before they become serious. This may look like starting allergy medicine or taking another type of over the counter medicine for a cold you may have, but it could also be treating a minor injury. You were playing intramural sports softball the other night and you hurt your ankle when you ran. You may want to ice it and take it lightly on your feet for a few days. There's also going to be times where you do need medical attention. You have access to health services located in the Health and Wellness Hub at the corner of Regay and East College Streets. Health services is open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 o'clock. If you wake up on Tuesday morning and you think, I really don't feel well, you can stop by the hub during walk-in times at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. We always recommend students show up a couple of minutes early because it is a first come, first serve to see the healthcare providers. It is important to note that health services is not set up for emergency care situations such as a broken bone. For that type of care, you would need to seek an emergency room in the area. Lastly, we recommend you have a first aid kit in your living space and even your car. These are great things to have, especially for minor illnesses and injuries. Most grocery stores or drugstores have a pretty good first aid kit for a reasonable price. Other things to think about when you are an adult are your home vehicle maintenance and other emergencies. Whether or not you are in a resident hall or you are now moved into your first apartment, it's important to have a fire extinguisher, smoke detector, and carbon monoxide alarm. If you're unsure, you can go and ask whomever you're renting from, and they can let you know what is provided in your space. Many apartment complexes will automatically provide fire extinguishers and smoke detectors and will continually maintenance them. Other things to know are where are there breaker boxes and water main supply. Depending on where you live, it may be difficult to identify where the water supply can be turned off, as well as where the breaker box can be located. If you are cooking and a grease fire starts, never put water on the grease fire. You will only make it worse. Turn off the power source, put a lid on the flame. We don't get freezing temperatures too often in East Texas, but if you ever heard of our snow apocalypse from a couple of years ago, we definitely had some freezing temperatures. It might be part of your adulting duties in making sure to wrap the faucets that are on the outside of the building or let your faucets drip to prevent the water from freezing. If water is moving, it's unable to freeze. Other things you want to make sure to do are maintain your ride. Make sure that you're getting your oil change when needed. Most oil change companies put a sticker on your windshield that states what length of time or mileage you need to get your next oil change. Lastly, low tire pressure. Most cars these days give a notice when you have low tire pressure. If you're unsure of how much air needs to be put in your tire, open your driver door and on the inside panel, it will have a sticker that will state what your front and back tires need to be air pressure wise. For some cars, it might have a different number for the back compared to the front. Now that you're an adult, you may want to think about homeowners or renters insurance. Whether you're renting a house or you live on campus within residence life, you can purchase renters insurance for a reasonable price. Auto insurance is required by law. Many students on their parents' medical insurance. If that is not an option for you, SFA offers access to a student health insurance plan for nationwide health and prescription coverage, including access to top providers at competitive prices. For more information, visit the Student Health Insurance Plan website on SFA's webpage. To wrap up, we are the Lumberjack Wellness Network. We are located out of the Baker Patillo Student Center, third floor, the Dean of Students office. You can always gain information on LWN by calling us at 936-468-7249 or emailing us at lwn@sfasu.edu. We recommend you follow us on social media. We have a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook account. Lastly, I hope you found this session helpful and axe 'em Jack.